Welcome to a special episode of Let's Talk Tax. I'm your co-host with TJ Sponsel today, Tim LeMasters. It's a pleasure being here with you today, TJ. We haven't done this yet.
No.
We had to do a whole season.
Exactly. They waited to start season 2 off with us.
Yeah. So, well, it's a pleasure. And I think the one thing that we really want to talk about today is we're going to do a little bit of recap. And I think it's good to focus on some of the things that were some highlights. We can talk about maybe some bloopers. There's not too many of them because I felt like the shows were well ran. Obviously, our marketing team does a great job with these. So, but let's just kick it off with maybe you can kind of go through kind of the reason and the purpose of why we started Let's Talk Tax, and then we can get into season 1.
Sure. Well, Tim, number one, thank you for all you do. Thank you for how you've led our Alliance network to unbelievable levels. You know, serving 500 firms in all 50 states is something we're very proud of. Let's Talk Tax was, the firm has always been a technically led firm. Going back to when Dave and I started the firm, that's how we chose to lead. It was the first 5 or 6 years, we didn't even have anybody in business development. That was all Dave and I. And then as we grew, we realized our role within the CPA industry to be a technical resource. And I think that evolution really catapulted us during COVID. Mm-hmm. Dave did a fantastic job with the CARES Act and other tax implications of that important tax legislation that led to us having more firms, more clients looking to be fed with the technical knowledge of the services related to McGuire Sponsel.
Agree.
And so you look at what was just once an R&D and cost seg firm now has global business service, which includes transfer pricing and international or U.S. reporting for international transactions, and obviously location advisory services, 174, 179D, 45L before the IRA, and it was just a natural fit to expand and create a brand new platform to reach new users and to modernize, if you will, our communication strategy. And so Let's Talk Tax was a perfect way to do that. One thing I'm very proud of, number one, the number of subscribers and listeners that we have on a regular basis, but the number of people within our firm that have been on this platform and have been featured, because that's what makes McGuire Sponsel great. Yes, we have great services and we do a good job, but our people, we want to empower them. We want the industry to see them so they can enjoy that aspect. The best part of the job is serving our clients and having the FaceTime with our clients. So this allows them to get that recognition and be able to create kind of their own little sub-brand within McGuire Sponsel.
Yeah, and I think if you look back at COVID, you talk about all the things that came out, PPP, ERC. And when we fast forward to, season 1, there's a lot of things that we were able to highlight through season 1. Obviously, we know 174 was a major issue and continues to be. The changes with the IRS and some of the finalizing of the ERC credit. I think that was some things that really kind of messed up some of the things that we were talking about early on. But then we started to focus on what the future looked like of 2024, and that's where we really started putting some episodes together. So I really enjoyed some of the I would say the technical episodes, but one that kind of stuck out to me a little bit was you and Sarah Turner. Why don't you touch on a little bit? Because I feel like even when I went out, I'm in the market talking to people. When I was in the market, people are like, "Hey, that episode with TJ and Sarah, that was awesome." Yeah. Highlight kind of the reason behind that.
Well, first of all, Sarah Turner is an unbelievable resource to this firm. It's a relationship going back 6 years. She has been had unbelievable impact throughout our organization in helping coach our people. And when we brought Sarah in 2019, we felt that we needed a different voice. It kind of goes back to, I'm dating myself here, but when Larry Bird was a coach of the Pacers, he resigned after 3 years because he felt that there's some, at a certain point, players tune the coach out. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that completely, but I believed that an outside perspective was going to help our young staff develop into really good managers and next generation leaders. And so seeing the success of that over the past 6 years, 5 years back in 2024, and seeing how as we've grown, what started out as just 2 guys, now is this 100-person firm with 5 offices, we're dealing with a lot of the same challenges our alliance partners are. And as much as I'll talk about the R&D credit and I'll brag about all of our other service lines, I talk a lot with managing partners, leading partners of CPA firms about common challenges. Yeah. And people is the biggest challenge facing our industry. And so I thought, wow. And I was talking to Kelsey and Meg here within the firm, and I just thought it was a natural conversation for us to have and a very intriguing topic for our listeners.
Yeah.
Is that, and Sarah obviously did just an amazing job. And not that we get things wrong all the time here in terms of people development, but for us to be able to talk about the things that we're experiencing and how that kind of reverberates throughout the entire CPA industry was reassuring. That number one, we are viewed as a peer. We want to be viewed as a peer or a strategic partner within the CPA industry. We don't want to be looked at as a vendor. There's a lot of firms that do that. We're different. We are a peer, and I think that those episodes. I think there was 2 episodes there, because there was so much content. It just reinforced how we want to position ourselves in the CPA industry.
Yeah, agree. I would think that something with Sarah Turner and just being a part of the experience of Sarah Turner right now that I'm going through, I would think that her coming on here would be something maybe we look at in season 2 just for kind of another go at it. But
it's funny you say that, Tim. Yesterday she was in the office. We're facilitating this planning exercise, and it's going really well. And we sat down in my office afterwards and recapped, and I kind of told her that she stuck with us. So yes, you'll don't worry, everybody. You will see more Sarah Turner this year. But I think that's the thing is we look at how we want to position our firm.
Yeah.
Obviously as leaders in the firm, we get to have a lot of fun conversations and futuristic conversations, and we look at this as, yes, we're a global business, R&D, fixed asset, and LAS right now, but we're constantly listening to what CPA firms want, and that's what this platform kind of helps us affirm that commitment to the CPA industry to say, hey, we're here, and we're going to continue to bring more solutions. You look back at our GBS practice, our global business practice, we only started that practice because a large alliance firm called me one night. The managing partner of a top 50 firm called me one night and said, hey, my partners don't want to invest in this. Will you invest in it? And that's how we chosen to position, is that we're constantly listening. That's why we offer now 14 services or so from 2 back in 2007, is we're listening. And so that's what this platform here allows us to say, prove that we are listening.
I agree.
That we're trying to bring solutions and counsel to CPA firms and their clients.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let's kind of talk about that, because I think some of the episodes this past season, 174, let's kind of dive into how much we were getting content from our CPAs on their clients and the 174 issues, and we all know it was a problem. But I think it was something that we all started to face the problem, and that's one thing that came in some of the episodes. So let's talk about how we dove into 174 and really focused on that. With I think Sly was on here. Who else did an episode of 174? Garrett, Sly and Garrett. Sorry, and for those that don't know, Sly is David Seibel, so he goes by Sly here in the office, but. Let's talk about kind of how we dove into that for our CPAs to really explain how we could focus on supporting them with 174 complexities.
174 should never have been law. The amortization should never have been law. It was never intended to be enacted. I mean, it was passed, but it was never meant to be enacted, it would impact taxpayers. And it got turned into a political football. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, it got turned into a political football. One thing that we did in early 23, when we realized it was not going to get fixed, even though everybody was saying in 2022 it was going to get fixed, is that we tried to grab this thing around the throat and say, okay, we're going to be a solution for CPAs. Because, 174 was just something we knew of. We didn't realize the impact it had and what expenses were to be included. And the IRS didn't come out with any guidance. So we were, again, a commitment to the CPA industry of saying we're going to build up a resource for this. And that has been extremely successful in a very difficult tax situation, a very punitive tax situation for our clients. We've been able to bring education. We've been able to bring counsel. We've been able to play bad cop a little bit, help our CPAs, because it's a very difficult conversation to have. And we've been able to play that role of, hey, we're supporting you, and we're going to do the research, and we have the knowledge. And if you look now, we have, we do hundreds of 174 studies. We didn't back away from it. I think certain people shied away from that whole topic, starting in 23 and even in 24. When HR 7024 passed in January of last year, everybody's like, whoa, it's going to get fixed. We didn't assume that. Yeah. Now, obviously, we engaged with lobbyists in D.C., and we were having a lot of calls with Congress people talking about discouraging conversations about this, trying to get this thing solved. But we realized it's law, and we're here to give counsel, and we never backed away from it. It was unfortunate, and we didn't enjoy it, but we were there to try to be that counsel that the CPA and their clients needed.
Yeah. 174 is a situation where we communicated early and often, and I think that really supported our CPA firms. So I know that it was hard to communicate that early on, and even now when we get on R&D calls with new clients, in the back of your mind, it's like, gosh, I got to bring up 174, and nobody likes that, right?
Yeah.
But it's important, and so
Well, it's funny. As I tell people for years, I've been doing this for 20 years. And May 2nd of this year, 2025, Dave and I will mark our 20 years to being together. And I was always the credit guy. I was the good guy. I get on a call and somebody would be like, "Hey, I'm be the credit guy." And then 2 years ago, I was now the guy giving bad news, going, those credits, yeah, they're still there, but you got to have a significant tax bill.
Yeah.
And it's just a delicate conversation to have. But, that's just one example. I mean, you look at what we've done with our global business practice, and transfer pricing studies. I mean, we're, talk about it, because I think sometimes we play the role of myth busters, is that people have this perception of what is required, i.e. a transfer pricing study. There's a lot of people think a transfer pricing study is $60,000, $80,000 project. Okay. And we do some of that work. We have some of those projects, but not every client has to have a $60,000 to $80,000 transfer pricing study.
No.
And so we've been able to use this platform and other messaging avenues that we have, just have John Bodar or Jason Rao or Greg Lambert in our GBS practice explain the importance of a transfer pricing study. And hey, we can use this as a planning tool. It's just not an insurance policy for you.
Yeah. And it, we're going to fast forward to season 2 here in just a minute, but it wasn't all just technical season 1. We didn't just get into the technical stuff. Obviously, your episode with Sarah Turner, but I think some of the growth strategies that we put together as well. I know, I got on with Mike Hamill, and he talked about the Southeast and some of the growth that's going on in the Southeast.
Sure.
Obviously, private equity has been a big thing over the last couple of years within our industry. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because as a shareholder group, and obviously as founder of the firm, you guys have strategically made a decision not to go with private equity to make sure that you kind of focus on kind of that next level of people within the firm.
Yeah.
And I'm very appreciative, by the way, but I think it's good to talk about that a little bit.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing this up, because private equity has entered our space. It's been here for 4 or 5 years now. We get those calls regularly, and we have made the decision. Well, it was an easy decision for me, we're not doing it. Mm-hmm. We're going to. I use a term a lot internally. You're going to bet on yourself. And we're building this up in McGuire Sponsel to be an independent consulting firm, advising CPA firms, commercial brokerages, bankers, and that goal is to do that into perpetuity. But we also realize that comes with a certain set of challenges, because the way we invest has to be extremely targeted. Okay, and we have a long history of reinvestment in the firm. Mm-hmm. And so obviously there's been, we launched the LAS practice in 2014. We did the acquisition in Atlanta to create the Atlanta office back in 2019. And we've continued to do that. Now it's a matter of saying, okay, we've placed offices throughout the country to be closer to our alliance firms. We realize Texas is a crucial market to what we're doing. And we also realize that Texas has a lot of pride as a state. Mm-hmm. So trying to serve Texas from Atlanta or Indianapolis was not going to get us there. So we invested in a Dallas office. We're doing the same thing out with the Phoenix office. We're actually outgrown our space already. We're moving to new space here this summer. And that's allowed us to serve the West Coast better. Garrett Duffy is leading a charge up in the Northeast even though we have had a presence there for a long time, we're going to expand our presence, be more targeted. The Southeast has been extremely successful. So as we grow, we're looking and saying, all right, how do we want to, number one, where do we want to grow? Mm-hmm. Okay. And be very targeted on how we fund that growth, because we want to stay independent. We have, it's not the Dave and TJ show anymore.
Right.
All right. So how do we empower the Tim LeMasters, the Mike Hamills, the Taylor Leonards, the David Seibels? How do we empower them and support them and give them the seed money they need to build out their respective territories? How do they build out their respective practices to be what we've always been to the CP industry, and now what we want to do with commercial brokers with our location advisory practice? We believe that the firm is just at the cusp of being what it's going to be here in the next 6 to 7 years.
Yeah, talking about some growth strategies, obviously we've been experiencing that a little bit on our own here internally, and not something I want to focus on too much, but I do want to take in the time that we have left. I know I don't want to spend all time on season 1. So let's talk a little bit about season 2. Okay. It's going to be a little different. And because season 1 was a lot of, outside of Sarah Turner, it was a lot of internal conversations with people that we have here. And I know in season 2, we plan to kind of open up the door for some outside guess. Let's talk about that a little bit and what that's going to look like, and maybe what the approach is. Obviously we have some alliance networks that we're a part of, that we go to, and we spend a lot of time on the road at conferences and things of that nature. But I think we're going to pull in some people in season 2. We don't have those identified yet, but what's kind of the reasoning for kind of pulling some external, technical, I would say, experts in season 2?
And I appreciate you were using the word technical there, because season 2 is not going to deviate from that deep technical content that we've all been known for. We just realized that we have 4 practice areas, okay, but CPAs need a lot of other content, all right, and they trust us we're a resource for them. And so, given the fact of the relationships with thousands of CPAs we have, we can go and pick individuals that we know, we trust, we respect, and they don't have a good knowledge that we can share. And so I know that's a goal of ours. So it's not just Dave McGuire and myself and Jerry Hamill and Jason Rao and others going out talking about this from an internal standpoint, but it's going out and picking out people that we've got to know across the country to say, hey, this is really valuable advice and counsel and expertise that we can share with our partners, our alliance partners. And then there's also some best practices out there. You look at what people are struggling with, and we talk about growth. I think a lot of firms are struggling with growth. How to handle marketing. I think we've done a really good job with marketing over the years. So we're going to start spotlighting some things we've done, or we see other firms do really, really well, to say, okay, we're going to share that with you.
Yeah.
And I think, I have the privilege of speaking at some managing partner conferences throughout the year, and there's some things that we do that we've talked about, and it's been very, very it's been inspirational, I think, to some
refreshing.
of these and to these firms to say, wow, we're almost like a little beta here,
Mm-hmm.
because if we can make it work, heck, there's a lot of people that can make it work. I mean, we don't own the market on creativity here. I just think we're willing to try.
Sure.
And that's what sets McGuire Sponsel apart. We're going to fail. But that's okay, because we have enough confidence and we believe in ourselves, and we have the conviction to see something through, to better our firm and our people.
Well, and we're also going to have a lot of updates in 2025.
That's the great unknown, Tim.
Yeah.
Is that because you don't know, I was in a meeting this morning, and someone was talking about the tax bill passing in May, and I was like, the tax bill's not going to pass in May. Is that I think, unfortunately, it's probably going to be September, October. And so you have a lot of things with tariffs. There's a lot of disruption going on right now. Okay. And whatever side of the aisle you lean to, we can all agree there's disruption going on right now, and we've got to see how this all shakes out. So it's extremely challenging. And I had a town hall with a congressman that sits on the House Ways and Means Committee last year, and we had about 25 of our alliance partners and clients this meeting, and we were sitting there talking how maddening it is to be able to give appropriate, timely, or proactive counsel to our clients when the laws are always changing. They're always expiring, and so it's going to be unsettling over the next few months. Just how do we counsel our clients, not just on 174, but on bonus depreciation? I mean, there were some things. Nothing in the tax law is permanent anymore. So you have 179D out there. 40 before the Inflation Reduction Act, you obviously had 45L was a very, very valuable tax credit. That was greatly diluted.
Yeah.
Now, honestly, for me, I thought it's more appropriate now because it actually rewards energy savings, because they got to be Energy Star. But that could change. I mean, so everything is right now subject to change, and it's very hard because these businesses are wanting to make investments. I mean, you look at since President Trump was in his inauguration, look at the amount of investment that's coming in to our country. What's been announced? Well, that's going to feed other investment as it trickles down. But do I know if my R&D expensing is going to be there?
Yeah.
Do I know if bonus is going to be there? All right. Do I know what other incentives are out there that I'm leaning on right now that may not exist? Okay, there's all kinds of things at play. You have IC disc, which we haven't talked about yet. That's a rate play. What's that arbitrage going to be? So there's all these things, and here's what our commitment has always been: we're going to give you timely advice. We're not going to speculate. All right, we're going to tell you what the law is, and we're going to tell you what our experience is, and we're going to tell you what we're hearing. But we're not going to get ahead of our skis. That's what we're not going to do at McGuire Sponsel.
And what you're saying is there's going to be a lot more episodes in 25 than there probably was in 24 because of all the updates.
Possibly, yes. Yeah. Possibly, but it's not going to be filler. Yeah. That's my point, is that we don't do filler here. And I'm not trying to disparage anybody that does, but our commitment is a CPA client relationship. Our commitment is to those people that lean on us for good technical resources, and we don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
We want to give good, valuable advice that's going to help you serve the clients, help your clients grow their business, and reduce their tax exposure.
Yep. Agreed. Well, TJ, I know we're running out of time. I really appreciate being a part of this with you today. I think that 2025 is going to be a really cool season. I know we've got a lot coming. There's already a lot coming at us already. So I'm really looking forward to maybe hosting another one with you, but it might not be until next year. So
we'll see.
But thanks everybody for joining on this recap of Let's Talk Tax Season 1. We really appreciate you joining, all the audience.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tim. Thank you for taking time to tune in today. You can subscribe to Let's Talk Tax podcast on YouTube and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. In addition, today's show notes and links to more about the episode can be found online at McGuireSponsel.com. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.